Chapter 8. Vital Villages, Thriving Towns, Iron Tools and Agriculture. We often take the use of iron for granted today. Things made of iron and steel are the part of our daily lives. The use of iron began in subcontinent around 3000 years ago. Some of the largest collections of iron tools and weapons were found in the megalithic burials, about which you read in chapter 4. Around 2500 years ago, there is evidence for the growing use of iron tools. These included axes for clearing forest and iron plowshares. As we had seen in chapter 5, the plowshares was useful for increasing agricultural production. Other steps to increase production: irrigation. The kings and the kingdoms you have been reading about could not have existed without the support of flourishing villages. While new tools and systems of transplantations increased production, irrigation was also used. Irrigation works that were built during this time included canals, wells, tanks, and artificial lakes. If you look at the charts, you will find that some of the stages in the construction of irrigation works are mentioned. Fill the rest by using the following phrases. Who lived in villages? There were at least 3 different kinds of people living in most villages in the southern and the northern part of the subcontinent. In Tamil region, large landowners were known as villalers. Ordinary plugmen were known as uzavar, and landless laborers, including slaves, were known as kadiyasiyar and adiyamai. In the northern part of the country, the village headman was known as grama bhojaka. Usually, the men from the same family held the position for the generation. In other words, the post was hereditary. The grama bhojaka was often the largest landowner. Generally, he had slaves and hired workers to cultivate the land. Besides, as he was powerful, the king often used him to collect the taxes from the village. He also functioned as a judge and sometimes as a policeman. Apart from the Grama Bhujaka, there were other independent farmers known as Grihapati, most of whom were smaller landowners. And then there were the men and the women such as the Das and Dasa, Karmakara, who did not own the land and had to earn a living working on the field owned by others. In most villages, there were also some craft persons such as blacksmith, potter, carpenter, and weaver. The earliest Tamil composition. Some of the earliest works in the Tamil, known as Sangam literature, was composed around 2300 years ago, and these texts were called as Sangam because they were supposed to have been composed and compiled in assemblies known as Sangams of the poets that were held in the city of Madurai. The Tamil terms mentioned above are found in the Sangam literature. Finding out about cities, stories, travelers, sculptures, and archaeology. You may have heard about Jatakas. These were the stories that were probably composed by ordinary people and then written down and preserved by Buddhist monks. Here is a part of a Jataka story which tells us how a poor man gradually became rich. The clever poor man. Once upon a time, there was a clever poor young man who lived in the city. His only resource was a dead rat. He started off by selling it for coins to a hotel for their cat. Then one day there was a storm. The king's garden was littered with branches and leaves, and the gardener was at loss as how to clear the mess. The young man offered to clean the garden if he could keep the woods and leaves. The gardener agreed at once. The young man rounded up all the children who were playing with an offer of sweets for every stick and leaf that they could collect. In no time, every scarf had been neatly piled near the entrance. Just then, the king's potter was on the lookout for a fuel with which he with which to bake his pots. So he took the whole lot and paid the young man for it. Our young man now thought of another plan. He carried the jar full of water to the city gate and offered water to 500 grass cutters. They were pleased and said, "You have done a good turn. Tell us, what can we do for you?" He replied, "I'll let you know when I need your help." He then made friends with traders. One day the trader told him, "Tomorrow a horse dealer is coming to the town with 500 horses." Hearing this, our young man went back to the grass cutters. He said, "Please give me a bundle of grass each, and don't sell your grass till mine is sold." They agreed and gave him 500 bundles of grass. When the horse dealer could not buy grass anywhere else, he purchased the young man's grass for 1,000 coins. So we use other kinds of evidence to find out about the life in some of these early cities. Sculptures carved scenes depicting people lives in the towns and villages as well as in the forest. Many of the people's sculptures were used to decorate railing, pillars, and gateways of buildings that were visited by people. That were visited by the people. Many of the cities that developed from about 2500 years ago were the capital of Mahajanpadas that you have learned in chapter 5. As we had seen, some of these cities were surrounded by massive fortification walls. In many cities, archaeologists have found rows of pots or ceramic rings arranged one on top of others. These are known as the ring wells. These seems to have been used as toilets in some cases and as drains and garbage dumps. These ring wells are usually found in individual houses. We have hardly any remains of palaces, markets, or of homes of ordinary people. Perhaps some are yet to be discovered by archaeologists. Others made of wood, mud bricks, and thatch too may had not have survived. Another way of finding out about early cities is from the account of sailors and travelers who visited them. One of the most detailed account that has been found was by unknown Greek sailor. He described all ports he visited. The story of Barigaza, the Greek name for the barrage. The gulf is very narrow at Barigaza and very hard to navigate for those coming from sea. Ships had to be steered in by skillful and experienced local fishermen who were employed by king. The imports of Barigaza were wine, copper, tin, lead, coral, topaz, cloth, gold, and silver coins. Exports from the town included plants from Himalayas, ivory, agates, carnelians, cotton, silk, and perfumes. Special gifts were brought by merchants for king. These included the vessels of silver, singing bowls, beautiful women, fine wines, and fine clothes. Coins. You may have noticed how wealth is measured in terms of coins in the story on the page 82. Archaeologists have found several thousands of coins belonging to this period. The earliest coins, which were in use for about 500 years, were punched marked coins, such as shown below. Punched marked coins. Punched marked coins were generally rectangular or sometimes square or round in shape, either cut out of a metal sheet or made of flattened metal globules, a small spherical body. The coins were not inscribed but were stamped with symbols using dies or punches. Hence, they are called punch-mark coins. These coins are found over most parts of the subcontinent and remain in circulation till the early centuries of CE. Other means of exchange. Read the short poem from the Sangam collection. As they carry the white patty of their land to exchange it for the soil for another, crossing the long roads in carts through sands white on moonlight, taking whole family who hate to left behind. The departure of the salt merchants leave the city empty. Salt was produced plentifully along the sea coast. What are merchants planning to exchange it with? How are they traveling? Cities with many functions. Very often, a single town was important for the variety of reasons. Let us look at the example of Mathura. Mathura has been an important settlement for more than 2,500 years. It was important because it was located at the crossroad of two major routes of the travel and the trade, from the northwest to the east and from the north to the south. There were fortifications around the cities and several shrines. Farmers and herders from adjoining areas provided food for the people in the city. Mathura was a center where some extremely fine sculptures was produced. Around 2000 years ago, Mathura became the second capital of Kushanas, about whom you will be reading in chapter 9. Mathura was also a religious center. There were Buddhist monasteries, Jaina shrines, and it was an important center for the worship of Krishna. Several inscriptions on the surface, such as the stone slabs and the statues, have been found in Mathura. Generally, these are short inscriptions, recordings, gifts made by men and sometimes women to monasteries and shrines. These were made by the kings and the queens, officers, merchants, and craftspersons who lived in the city. For instance, inscriptions from Mathura mention goldsmith, blacksmith, weaver, basket makers, garlands makers, and perfumes. Craft and craft persons. We also have archaeological evidences for craft. These include extremely fine pottery, known as the northern black polished ware (NBPW). It gets its name from the fact that it is generally found in the northern part of the subcontinent. Remember that archaeological evidences for many crafts may not have survived. We know from texts that manufacture of the cloth was important. There were famous centers such as Varanasi in the north and Madurai in the south. Both men and women worked in these centers. Many craftspersons and merchants now formed associations known as shrinis. The shrinis of the craftspersons provided training, procured raw material, and distributed the finished product. Then shrinis or the merchants organize the trade. Shrinis also serve as bank where the rich men and the women deposit money. This was invested and a part of the interest was written or used to support religious institutions and monasteries. Northern black polished ware NBPW is a hard wheel-made metallic looking ware with a shiny black surface. The potter used to expose the earthenwares to a very high temperature in his kiln, which resulted in blackening of its outer surface. A fine black slip was also applied on this, which gave the pottery the mirror-like shine. Rules for spinning and weaving. These rules are from Arthashastra mentioned in chapter 7. They describe how spinning and weaving could be done in the workshop under the supervision of special officials. Widows, young women who are differently abled, nuns, mothers of courtesans, retired women servants of the king, women who have retired from the services of the temple may be used for the processing wool, bark, cotton, hemp, and flax. They should be paid according to the quality and the quantity of the work. Women who are not permitted to leave their homes can send maid servants to bring the raw material from the superintendent and take the finished work back to him. Women who can visit the workshop should go at the dawn to give their work and receive their wages. There should be enough light to examine the work. In case the superintendent looks at the woman or talks about anything other than the work, he should be punished. Okay, right? If a woman does not complete her work, she will have to pay a fine, and her thumb can be cut off. A closer look. Akrimedu. Find Akrimedu in Pondicherry on map 7 and read the box on the row on page 8. Between 2200 and 1900 years, 900 years ago, Akramedu was a coastal settlement where the ships unloaded goods from distant lands. A massive brick structure, which may have been a warehouse, was found at the site. Other finds include pottery from the Mediterranean region, such as the amphoria, tall, double-handed jars that contain liquids such as wine or oil, and stamped red glazed pottery, known as ware, Eretinware, which was named after the city of Italy. This was made by pressing the wet clay into the stamp mound. There were there was yet another kind of pottery which was made locally through though the Roman designs were used. Roman lamps, glasswares, and gems have been found at the sites. Small tanks have been found that are probably dyeing vats, used to dye clothes. There is plenty of evidence for making the beads from semi-precious stones in glasses. Elsewhere, find Rome on the map. This is one of the oldest cities in Europe and developed around the same time as the city of the Ganga Valley. Rome was the capital of one of the largest empires, one of the spread across the Europe, North Africa, West Asia. Augustus, one of the most important emperor who ruled about 2000 years ago, said that he found Rome, a city of a brick, and made it into a city of a marble. He and the later rulers built temples and palaces. They also built huge amphitheaters, open arenas surrounded by tiers of seats where citizens could watch all kinds of shows and public baths with separate timing for men and women where the people met and relaxed. Huge aqueduct channels to supply water were built to bring the water to the city for the bath and fountains and toilets. So here we complete chapter 8. Thank you so much for watching my video till the end. And please subscribe, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Thank you.